Hello everybody, welcome back. My mum and dad were at parents' evening. I was at home, fast asleep in bed because I was 5 years old. When I woke up the next day, had no idea of the trauma my mum and dad went through the night before. Miss Blinko, can you tell me why there are no pictures of Sharon's drawings on the wall, but there are pictures of every other child's drawings on the wall? Because your child is mentally disabled. She is educationally subnormal. What? Said my dad. Your child is educationally subnormal. My mum stood there, and she's shy anyway. She cringed. She went into herself as all the other parents turned round and looked at her and my dad, and then at the teacher, Miss Blinko, who had her hands on her hips, nose in the air, and was shouting rude things at my mum and dad out of the blue about me. Can you explain what you mean, Miss Blinko? Said my dad. Well, she draws humans with no necks. Humans have necks. She draws them with the head right on top, the chest. My dad said, Miss Blinko, Sharon is 5 years old. There's a drawing over there that a boy has done, and the man has got 6 fingers, and he's got 1 foot because he's 5. That's how children draw. Well, your child is educationally subnormal, and she's holding back little Karen. I don't like the two of them playing together. Karen's mum, who was white, she turned to Miss Blinko and she said, excuse me, but I don't have a problem with my daughter playing with their child. It was no use. My mum was already wanting to kill this woman, and my dad was fuming, but he just didn't know what to do. And he doesn't like confrontation. So I'm not quite sure what happened at that moment then, but I do know that later on in parents' evening, Karen's mum took my parents aside and said, I'm so embarrassed about what's just happened to you. I want you to know I don't have a problem with my child playing with your child. They're 4 and 5, for goodness sake. What harm could your child do to my child? You need to take this further. So the next day, my mum went charging down to the school to see the headmistress, Miss Hall. As my mum tearfully related the incident to Miss Hall, her face went red, Miss Hall's face. She couldn't quite believe what my mum was telling her, and she ordered Miss Blinko to come into her office at once. Miss Blinko walked in and she said, Is this true? Did you say all this to Sharon's parents? Yes. Why? Do you really think she's educationally subnormal? Do you really think she's holding back Karen? Do you really think this? And why? Because I have never taught a black child before. Black children are different, and I have never taught them, and I just don't know how to deal with them. Well, Miss Hall, the headmistress, she went purple with rage, had a complete fit at Miss Blinko, and gave her verbally what she probably deserved. My mum, however, standing there as a black woman, seeing that Miss Hall is white and Miss Blinko's white, not sure if Miss Hall's just saying things to appease my mum, turned to Miss Hall and said, just get that woman away from my child. Get my child out of that class at once. I do not want my child in that class. So I went to school the following day and was in a different class. I didn't really realise what was going on. I thought that everybody had changed classes. And as a 5-year-old, I wasn't going around asking anybody who was still in Miss Blinko's class what new class they were in. I was shy myself. I don't think I had that many friends. So my mum must have told me that everybody's being jiggled up, and I was totally unaware of it. I have no traumatic memories of my time in Miss Blinko's class other than the fact that she let this girl called Sandra spit in my face. But at 5 years old, I didn't know that the teacher was responsible for splitting us up and was responsible for stopping her doing that. She took my chipsticks, my salt and vinegar chipsticks, which are crisps, potato chips, on my first day, and an apron that my mum had equipped me with. She threw those in the bin on my first day, but I don't remember that. I don't feel traumatised by that. But I suppose if something like that had happened in the modern day, Miss Blinko would be exposed publicly in the national papers and she would be sacked on the spot. I certainly, as a mother, would not have put up with that, and I would have gone to the top. My parents, being in a very pro-white area where they lived anyway, and the school was, well, I was the only black child in the school, only black child in the area, really. There were a few Asians, but it was just one of those situations. My parents just didn't want to fuss, so nothing happened about that. Miss Blinko kept her job. But, you know, I have grown up hearing this story and hearing variations of the story, but the main part of it always being the same about what Miss Blinko said about me drawing people with no necks. Funnily enough, I've got a nice qualification in art and I can actually draw people quite well. But anyway, casting that aside, I look back at that story and I think about how God protected my little heart. There's been so many books and videos and tales and movies about people who suffered horrendous things from a very early age, and they remember those things and are affected by them. I'm not affected by Miss Blinko's racism. I'm not affected by her hatred. Nothing has gone down deep in my mind subconsciously, and I believe that's because my parents, although they probably didn't deal with Miss Blinko in the right way, they dealt with me by praying for me. They dealt with my emotions by interceding for my heart, because they were probably thinking, what else has she done? And kids don't talk, do they? Often you find out the real story 5, 6, 7 years down the line. How many children have been abused sexually and they don't say anything until they're in their late 20s or their 70s? So they prayed for me and God answered that prayer and he kept me. And my memories of school are good memories, all schools. So I thank God that he's been with me through all my life. And if you've been through a traumatic experience as a child or as a parent, your child has, and you're feeling terrible, you're feeling guilty, you're feeling angry, you want revenge, maybe your child has become disabled permanently because of this problem, a doctor doing something wrong, or maybe they are no longer with you and they've passed on. I want to encourage you that God does care about our children and he will heal your emotional wounds if you soften your heart and ask him to soften your heart. Sometimes we can't do that on our own. Actually, it's impossible to do it on our own because we naturally are like that. So God loves you and he cares about you, and there are so many things that could have happened to you that he protected you from that you don't even know about. if as a parent something's happened to your child at school or whenever, stand up for yourself, stand up for that child, but turn to God as well, because He didn't make it happen. We live in an evil world, and that's why evil things happen even to innocent children. Thank you for listening to my story. This is taken from my book that's entitled God Loves Children. It's written in quite a different way in the book, because when you're telling a story on video, you're not telling it in a literary way. You're just trying to remember the story and tell it as best as you can. So you would find it more interesting probably if you read the book, but I'll leave that up to you, that choice. So my book, God Loves Children, is not so much about God's love for children in general, but how He uses children to speak to us, or uses childhood memories to speak to us. And my book starts from talking about a situation with a newborn, then I talk about toddler years, then primary years, then tweens, and then the last 3 stories are involving teenagers. If you wish to hear more of these stories, stay with me, subscribe, or just wait a couple of days until I pop the next video on, and then you can listen to that. In the meantime, please let me know in the comments box if you as a parent have ever had something difficult, embarrassing, enraging, something that happened to you to do with school or to do with some kind of club your children were going to, and you didn't know how to deal with it. Or you did know how to deal with it and you want to give other people encouragement of how to stand up for your children as parents. Please share those stories with us in the comments box, and that will be greatly appreciated. In the meantime, have a great week. God bless you. See you soon. Bye bye.